Moment to introduce our wonderful speakers for this evening. So we have Carlos Ron, who's the Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs for North America. And then he's also the president of the Simón Bolívar Institute for Peace and Solidarity Among Peoples. And we also have Andreína Chávez, who's a staff writer for Venezuelanalysis. And if you're ready, Andreína, we can go ahead and start with your presentation.
Yes,
wonderful.
Sounds good. Okay, so first of all, hi everyone, and thank you so much for inviting me to this event and for taking an interest in Venezuela, and especially for taking an interest in our presidential election, which is going to happen on July 28th. It is really great to be here and to share information on this important topic. And I am also excited to maybe listen to some of your questions or your thoughts about the elections. So I think I should introduce myself first. And like Tristan said, my name is Andreína Chávez. I am a journalist. I live in Caracas, and I have been working as a writer for Venezuelanalysis since 2021. And for those of you who might be unfamiliar with Venezuelanalysis, this is an independent media outlet that is in English. It is based in Venezuela. It was created in 2003, right after the coup against Hugo Chavez. And basically, this Venezuelanalysis was created because there was this need to provide honest coverage about Venezuela, about the Bolivarian Revolution, for an audience that it is constantly lied to by the corporate media. So at Venezuelanalysis, we are a really small team, but we make everything from news articles to opinion articles. We also have a podcast, which I invite you to listen to on our website. And every Friday, we publish interviews with popular power leaders, especially from Venezuela's commune. So that's very interesting. I invite you to check that out. Of course, we also provide on-the-ground coverage about important events on Venezuela. And on July 28, we will be visiting polling centers, and we will be giving you live updates throughout the day. So please make sure to follow Venezuelanalysis on social media. So yes, and today's presentation is going to be specifically about what's at stake at Venezuela in these presidential elections. And to be honest, as I was preparing for this event, I started thinking about how truly important this election is, not only for the Venezuelan people, but for Latin America in general, for the anti-imperialist struggle in the entire world. As you probably already know, the Bolivarian Revolution has been going on for 25 years, and it represents a real alternative, a real socialist alternative, and it represents regional integration. It represents the struggle against U.S. imperialism. So it is basically a beacon of hope for humanity in this fight against U.S. hegemony. So, and of course, in Venezuela, despite having the world's greatest military and economic power against it, the Bolivarian Revolution has achieved something extraordinary when it comes to popular power, when it comes to creating a political and economic program that truly favor the most vulnerable communities, by giving free healthcare, free education, affordable housing. And so, yeah, obviously, when we talk about the possibility of President Nicolas Maduro being re-elected on July 28th, what we are actually talking about is his re-election representing the biggest threat for U.S. imperialism right now, because it would completely ruin the plans of the neoliberal plan that the U.S. has for Latin America, for Venezuela, for the Caribbean. So this isn't just an election about choosing a president for the next 6 years. This is an election about choosing what path this country is going to follow. The path of sovereignty, the path of peace, regional integration, anti-imperialism, South-South cooperation, and the path of the construction of socialism and popular power and the communal project. On the other hand, the other path that we don't want to take will be, in the case of an opposition victory, will be the path of neoliberalism, of Venezuela becoming once more a US client state. And of course, we know what that means. We know that means that the elite in Venezuela will once more punish the most vulnerable communities so they can satisfy their needs for political and economic power. So to summarize, I think Venezuela's electoral outcome will have a powerful impact not only in Venezuela, but the entire region and the entire world. So before I move forward, I just wanted to show you like really quick a video. Sorry, I'm going to introduce this video before than I anticipated, but I think it fits better now. It is a video about Venezuela's great housing mission that we produce at Venezuelanalysis, and I think it sort of showcases more or less what I'm talking about what the Bolivarian Revolution means and what is at stake in this election.
Wonderful. Can you see the video currently?
Yes.
Perfect.
Venezuela's housing revolution. Venezuela's great housing mission is reaching 5 million homes built for working-class families in 13 years. As the economy stabilizes, the government aims to reach 7 million homes by 2030. In a world where housing is seen as a commodity and not a human right, this is the stuff of legends. The most inspiring housing projects see the people come together and build their homes through self-construction. How does it work? Organized communities locate abandoned plots, receive land titles, materials, training, and financing from the Venezuelan state. Self-construction can take years of hard work, but every new housing unit is a victory for popular power. One remarkable example is a housing project in Caracas built by women who overcame the US blockade and all its consequences. A story that sums up Venezuela's housing revolution and resistance against imperialism.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, let's begin talking directly about the Venezuelan elections. So maybe you can move forward a few slides. Yeah, the next one, please, and then the next one again. Again. Yes, right here. So yeah, I think this is basically one of the what I was talking about, that what is at stake in this election is the continuation of popular power, the continuation of social programs, which is, of course, the most revolutionary part of the Bolivarian Revolution. The next slide, please. Yeah, and the next one too. Okay, so let's stay here for a minute. And so let's talk about elections in Venezuela. Let's have like a little revised history a little bit here. So despite what corporate media has always said about Venezuela being a dictatorship, Venezuela not having democracy or whatever, and the reality is that Venezuela has had more than 30 elections since 1998. And these electoral processes, we can, of course, mention the presidential elections. We have Hugo Chavez victories in 1998, in 2002, 2006, and 2012. And we have to remember that Chavez last election in 2012, he won by an overwhelming majority. And sadly, Hugo Chavez, as you know, passed away the next year on March 2013. And Nicolas Maduro, who was his successor, he won the election that year. And that election was won by a small margin, but nonetheless, he won the election. And then he was re-elected again in 2018. And he is now running for a third mandate, which will be from 2025 to 2030. So as you can see, Venezuela has had plenty of election and plenty of of time to practice about how to improve our electoral process. But more than that, I think more importantly to me, it is the fact that Venezuelan social movement, Venezuelan communes, Venezuelan communal councils, they practice democracy on the ground, on their territories every single day. They make popular assemblies, they make their own elections, they're always discussing about what to do about the territories, what to do about the communities, about their means of production, how to better use their resources, how to improve their communities, how to improve their living conditions. So this is where democracy truly lies in Venezuela. The fact that we have an active popular power that every day makes decisions that affects them directly. And this is true democracy right there. For example, last April, we celebrated a national popular consultation, which saw more than 4,000 communal circuits choose local projects for their communities, and these projects are being funded by the Venezuelan state. Communities basically chose 3 main projects that they thought were important for the communities, and they voted for the most important one. These projects were about infrastructure, were about repairing public services or improving public services. Some projects were about acquiring an ambulance for the community, that it could be anything that the community thought was the most important thing that they needed, and it's going to be funded by the Venezuelan state. So as you can see, Venezuela has plenty of democratic practices on the ground every day. Going back to the presidential election in Venezuela in 2002, when Chavez was elected or re-elected, I think it's important to remember something that Jimmy Carter, the former US president, said back then about Venezuela's electoral process. See if you can show the next slide, please. Yes, so this is a quote that I think everybody remembers because, of course, even today, people still think about it. Jimmy Carter said, of 92 elections that we've monitored, I will say that the election process in Venezuela is the best in the world. In contrast, he also said that in the US, we have one of the worst election processes in the world, and it's almost entirely because of the excessive influx of money. So although the Venezuelan people has never really needed a foreign actor or foreign institution to validate or legitimize our electoral system, it is still important to remember this very accurate statement from former US President Jimmy Carter. And so you can see with this incredible background of democratic elections in Venezuela, we once more arrived to another electoral process that we're going to be celebrated in July 28. And one of the first things that I want to make sure that everyone knows is that our country is in a very peaceful state. There's no violence, there's no agitation. People are really, I think after so many years of economic destabilization, of street violence, people don't want anything to do with any kind of violence right now. People want to be able to go to vote, to make their decision in peace, and that's all. So we have all candidates are campaigning, but everything is completely peaceful right now. Actually, there's like really great expectations that we're going to have like really good participation in this election because nobody is calling for abstention, of course. We have 10 candidates running. We have 9 of these candidates are opposition to the government. We have dozens of international observers that are going to come to the country to accompany the elections. And among them, we have the Caribbean community. We have the Carter Center. We have even the United Nations is even going to send a panel of experts to witness the Venezuelan elections. So the next slide, please. Okay, so what you're going to see now is an infographic that we prepared in Venezuelanalysis, which explains the main aspects of the electoral process, and starting with some really basic facts and figures. In the next slide. Yes, so you can see here some basic numbers. We have around 21.3 million Venezuelans who are eligible to vote. Of course, the actual number of voters is going to be less than this because of migration, because it's not going to be 21 million. And we have at least 16,000 voting centers across the country, which is a lot more than in past elections. This is an important fact to know because this means that you won't see many lines in voting centers. Like the process is going to be really quick, and the process is, and because we have so many more voting centers, people won't have to stand in line for such a long time. So in case you don't see like lots of people outside voting centers, you have to have this fact into consideration that we have 16,000 voting centers, which is a lot more than we have in the past. And the presidential mandate that is at stake, it is for 6 years from 2025 to 2030. We have 10 presidential candidates. And as I said before, this is Venezuela has had more than 30 electoral processes since 1998. The next slide, please. Yes. Okay, so one thing that the opposition, Washington, corporate media always forgets to mention is how bulletproof Venezuela's electoral system really is. Against fraud, against manipulation, against any kind of fraudulent practice. So just to give you some idea of how that works, when we go to vote, first we have the biometric ID. This means that people put their fingerprint in this little machine, and this make sure that this stops identity theft and exhausts people from voting twice or from voting in an electoral center that is not the one they were assigned to. So this is the first step when you go to vote. The second step, when you validate your identity, is that you go to the electronic machine. In this electronic machine, people will select their candidate on a touchscreen, and it is important to know that these machines are offline, which means that they cannot be hacked. Then the next step will be this electronic machine is going to give you a paper receipt. Yes, it's going to print a receipt confirming the vote, and then the person takes this receipt and is going to deposit it in a box. Then the next step is that the voter is going to sign the electoral roll after voting, certifying that they have voted. And last, there is a bunch of audits that take place before, during, and after the vote. The next slide, please. Yes, so what do I mean with these audits? Well, basically, this is the part when it is really sort of impossible for us to have any kind of fraud in the Venezuelan electoral system. 50% of voting machines that are chosen randomly are publicly audited to match electronic and paper tallies, which means that, basically 54% of these machines we're going to make sure that the electronic vote is exactly the same as the paper receipt. And last but not least, all political parties, both from the government, both from the opposition, they all have witnesses in every electoral center, in every voting center. And they witness the entire process. And each of these parties has to enter its unique encrypted key to validate the final tally of every electoral center. So this is like I said, a bulletproof system. Nonetheless, I would like to show you another video because I am a firm believer that everything is understood much, much better when you watch it on a video. So this is a video that explains basically what I just said, but in a better way.
Is fraud possible in Venezuela? Venezuelan elections are coming up on July 28th, and the corporate media has recycled a familiar narrative. According to Western outlets, US-backed candidate Edmundo Gonzalez is guaranteed to win unless there is fraud. This leads us to ask, is it possible to have fraud with Venezuela's voting system? Let's see how it works. The first step is biometric identification, as voters place their thumbs in a fingerprint reading machine. This step ensures people only vote at their assigned polling station and can't vote more than once. Once the biometric step is cleared, the voter moves to the electoral booth to pick their candidate on a touch screen. These voting machines are offline until the polls are closed, meaning they cannot be hacked or fiddled with. Also, once the vote is cast, it prints a paper tally confirming the vote. This is deposited in a box. At the end of the voting process, 54% of voting machines are chosen randomly for an audit, open to everyone, to compare the electronic totals with the paper tallies. This has to match to a T, and also ensures that the count is irreversible. After casting the vote, people sign the electoral record, offering yet another fail-safe against ballot stuffing. But that is not all. Parties can have witnesses in all polling centers. And these witnesses have to sign off on a document with the final results. If there is any irregularity, all they have to do is show a final tally from a voting center that does not match the online results. In the past 2 decades, the opposition and their media backers have been eager to cry fraud, not so much to produce any evidence. Apart from the live audit, all political parties take part in more than a dozen other audits, before, during and after the vote, to ensure that everything is working as it should. Electoral observers also witness these steps. And finally, participating parties are given part of an encrypted key and they all have to enter it to validate the final results. In summary, it is very easy to fool readers with unfounded fraud claims. Actually tampering with Venezuela's electoral system? Not so much.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, I think that video is very useful to understand how the voting system in Venezuela works. So to continue with the presentation, I want to talk about the candidates. If you read corporate media, you would believe that Maduro and Edmundo Gonzalez are the only candidates in Venezuela. There certainly are the main candidates, the more important ones, but we have actually 10 candidates in Venezuela, and 9 of them are from the opposition. So it is also untrue that the only opposition candidate, or that the only opposition that exists in Venezuela is the one represented by Edmundo Gonzalez and María Corina Machado. We have many other opposition political parties that are participating and that they are building their own political programs and their own candidates. So, of course, we have to start with President Nicolás Maduro. He is running for a 3rd mandate. He's supported by the United Socialist Party of Venezuela and by other 12 political parties. So, of course, Maduro is the Chavismo candidate. He represents the continuation of the Bolivarian process. He represents the continuation of Venezuela's anti-imperialist stance. He represents the continuation of regional integration and multipolarity. Maduro is actually currently aiming to join the BRICS group, which is, there is a high chance that Venezuela is actually going to join the BRICS group in the near future. As you know, many countries inside this group are allies of Venezuela, and this would actually be a really important step forward for Venezuela and for the entire region when it comes to advancing multipolarity. I want to talk a little bit about Maduro's political program because I know for a fact that you won't be reading anything about it on corporate media. They're not giving any kind of coverage to what the government proposal is for the next 6 years. So if re-elected, Maduro is proposing a political program that is called Plan de la Patria de las 7 Transformaciones, which is translated to Homeland Plan of the 7 Transformations. This program was actually the result of a popular consultation. So people actually decided what they wanted for Maduro's political program in the next 6 years. And just to be clear, the program doesn't have exactly a new thing. It is more about reaffirming or reinforcing, securing initiatives and programs and ideas that we were already having in past years. So the plan has seven big transformations, and I try to summarize each of them the best I could. So the first one, of course, is about Venezuela's economic prosperity, economic diversification, and about always increasing national production. This is obviously because of the context of US sanctions, because of the context of the economic crisis that these sanctions created, the economy is always going to be a priority in President Maduro's political program now and in the future. The second point refers about reaffirming the country's sovereignty over our resources, about reaffirming national identity and our political independence. The third one, it is about peace and security. And of course, because Venezuela has been attacked in every single way, and we have been subject to everything really, from a fake interim government to even attempts at a military intervention. Peace and security, it is an important part of this political program. And there's also, of course, there has been quite a bit of emphasis in the past years about advancing ecological practices in the country, especially because we have had several natural disasters, and there's sort of like an initiative to create a better response to natural disasters, to continue to attend to these communities. And the next point, it is about strengthening social programs, like Venezuela's Great Housing Mission. As you said in the video, they have built around 5 million homes so far. The plan is to build 2 million more by 2030. So, of course, strengthening these social programs, it is a priority in this political program. And the sixth point is about reinforcing anti-imperialism. It is about continuing to advance regional integration, especially, all these integration in organizations that we have going on right now. There are plans for reactivating Petrocaribe. Petrocaribe was a program created by Hugo Chavez that provided oil at low prices to Caribbean countries. And this actually was tremendously good for these countries because it helped them develop. It was also very useful for them to stop dependent on US companies for oil, for fuel. So this is actually something that will be really important to see reactivated in the next few years. And last but not least, of course, one really important point in this political program is the consolidation of popular power and the communal project. In recent years, President Maduro has really made sure that the government has a better connection to popular power. And I think we have seen that lately with the appointment of Angel Prado, who is a really respected communal in Venezuela as Minister of Communes. So we're going to see more of that, definitely, according to this political program that Maduro has presented. And so, yeah, so moving on, I want to talk now about, of course, the other candidates. So on this side of the opposition, the main figure is actually someone who does not appear on the ballot. It's someone who is not a candidate, and that is Maria Corina Machado. So Machado was disqualified from holding political office for several reasons. Among those reasons is the fact that she called for street violence in 2017. She has been an enthusiastic supporter of US sanctions. She has called for military intervention in Venezuela. There is plenty of reasons why she was disqualified from running in this election or any election. And nonetheless, Maria Corina Machado has successfully established herself as the new main asset of the United States in Venezuela. She's basically, in a way, the new Juan Guaido, to say it in a way. And why is the United States supporting Maria Corina Machado and not the other 8 opposition candidates? Well, because Maria Corina Machado, of course, she represents the most opposed option to Chavismo. She represents the Venezuelan elite. She represents, she's a well-known fascist from Venezuela's elite. She's someone who has promised revenge against Chavismo. She is someone who has promised close ties with the United States. She is someone who has ties with the most fascist governments on this planet, like Israel, like Argentina's Milei. She is promising the privatization of the oil industry and all public services in Venezuela. So Maria Corina is sort of like the perfect child for the United States. Of course, because she could not be a candidate, she personally chose her replacement, and her replacement is Edmundo Gonzalez, who is the person that you can see on the screen. So Edmundo Gonzalez is a retired diplomat. He has never run for political office. He was basically completely unknown until a few months ago. He is supported by the Unitary Platform and two other political parties. And to be honest with you, although Edmundo Gonzalez has been participating in some small rallies, small marches, he is not the main face of the campaign. Maria Corina Machado is the leading figure. She's the one leading the campaign. She's the one appearing in rallies. She's the one calling people to vote. She's the one promoting her own political program. So to me, that's actually something that is going to play against them, because I think many people are going to expect to see her on the ballot, and of course, she is not on the ballot. We have, of course, like I said, other opposition candidates that are running in this election. And if you pass the next slide, please. Yes, so these are wildcard independents. And these three that you can see here on the screen, they are from the center right. And this is all speculation, of course, but we believe that they could secure maybe like 5% of the vote. And this could maybe sort of like swing the election one way or the other. So these are two candidates that could have like some amount of voting in their favor. Then we have the rest of the candidates that you can see in the next slide. So yes, so with the ones that you can see here, these complete the 10 candidates that we have running in this election. So they all belong to these center-right, right-wing political parties, and we do not expect them to play a significant role in this election. So there's not really much that we need to say about them, because, like I said, they're not expected to play a significant role in this election. So in the next slide, I want to show you how the ballot in Venezuela is going to look like. I want to show you this specifically because, as you can see, President Maduro appears 13 times, and then Edmundo Gonzalez appears 3 times, and then other candidates also have their photo several times. And this is normal in Venezuela. According to Venezuelan laws, each candidate can appear on behalf of every political party that supports them. So Maduro has 13 political parties that are supporting his candidacy, so he appears 13 times. Edmundo Gonzalez has 3 political parties, so he appears 3 times, and so on and on. So this is normal, despite what corporate media is trying to create this idea that this is something like some sort of strategy, so people get confused or something like that. No, we are used to it. Every time we go to a voting center, we are used to seeing the same faces repeated. We know what to do. We know how to vote. So this is not a problem. In the next slide, I don't want to talk too much about polls in Venezuela, because to be honest with you, they're not really reliable. Like, some of them have Maduro as the winner, some of them have Edmundo Gonzalez as the winner, but we cannot trust polls. To be quite honest with you, most of them respond to political strategies. Most of them have a historically proven pro-opposition bias. So they basically they create these numbers, so people create in their minds that, yeah, Edmundo Gonzalez has all this advantage against Maduro or whatever. But like I said, we cannot trust polls. It is really not reliable information. Nonetheless, these are like 2 of the latest polls that have been published lately. In the next slide. But yeah, so to summarize a little bit everything that I've been saying, what to expect from the elections. So in this scenario that President Maduro wins the election, which in my opinion, it is very likely to happen, I think we can expect the country to continue moving forward with economic recovery despite US sanctions. We have already seen inflation going down. We are seeing GDP growing. So, and we can also expect that the next phase of this economic recovery is going to be centered around raising salaries, raising pensions, about attending very important issues such as inadequacies in the healthcare system, in the prison and judicial system. So I think that's going to be a really big part of that. If Maduro wins, we can also, of course, expect that the US-backed opposition is going to claim there has been fraud, and we can expect Washington to back this claim. And this is not a new strategy. This is something that in past election, the opposition has repeatedly said that the opposition always have the same strategy. They abstain from participating in an election. They tell people not to vote. And even if they do participate, they always say that it's fraud. And they always call for street violence. We saw this in 2014, after Maduro won the election in 2013. There was this street violence that was called by the losing candidate, Enrique Capriles. Then we saw this happening again in 2017, and when they tried to once again stage a coup against the Venezuelan government by inciting violence process. And this happened right before the 2018 presidential election, in which the opposition did not participate. And so this path of violence promoted at opposition sectors is the reason why recently in April, Venezuela's National Electoral Council proposed an agreement for all the 10 candidates to sign, agreeing that they were going to recognize the results, that they were going to respect the results, and that they would not call for any kind of violence. So 8 candidates signed the agreement, except for 2, Edmundo Gonzalez and Enrique Marquez, who are opposition candidates. I think it's important to highlight that even though the opposition has always claimed fraud, they have never presented evidence of any kind of fraud in Venezuelan elections. So I want to very quickly say something about media coverage. I know that I've been speaking for a lot of time now. So in the next slide, so yeah, if you Google elections in Venezuela, you will find like hundreds and hundreds of articles about saying the same stories, the same lies over and over again. That the Maduro government is authoritarian, that the 2018 electoral results were fraudulent, that elections in Venezuela have never been free or have never been fair. And of course, that US sanctions are only against the government and that they do not affect the Venezuelan people, despite the fact that it has been proven by studies, specialists, experts, human rights experts, and economists that sanctions have significantly impacted all aspects of Venezuelan people. So yeah, so very quickly, I want to talk about US sanctions because I feel like no conversation about Venezuela can be without talking about US sanctions and its impact on Venezuela. So as you can see on the screen, we call them US sanctions, but the actual name is unilateral coercive measures. I think that these measures, of course, as many of you know, were designed to overthrow the government. They were designed to destroy Venezuelan economy, and they were designed to destroy our oil industry, which is our main source of income. And this was in order to create a crisis that would implode the country and would create the conditions for a coup. This didn't happen. Regime change didn't happen. However, US sanctions were very successful on destroying people's living conditions, and they were very successful in making people suffer from food shortages, medicine shortages, and fuel shortages. Some independent studies have said that sanctions killed about 40,000 people only in the first years when they were applied, from 2017 to 2018, and many more people have died since then. And they are classified as collective punishment, and yes, they have consequences on every aspect of Venezuelan economy and the Venezuelan people. So despite US sanctions, not achieving, despite U.S. sanctions destroying the economy so much, we can still say that Venezuela is on the path of economic recovery. So I would like to, if in case you want to know more about U.S. sanctions and understand more how they work and their impact, I think it would be really great if you could download a book that we wrote in Venezuelanalysis, that we published in Venezuelanalysis. It is free, and yeah, you can download it on our website, or I think Tristan is going to send it on the group. And yes, you will find like a collection of essays, infographics, many interviews, and everything that explains exactly how sanctions have affected Venezuela. In the next slide, I would like to finish off this presentation talking about something that I was specifically asked to, to mention in this presentation, was about the communal union. So as I told you before, recently President Maduro appointed Angel Prado as the new commune minister. Prado is currently the mayor of the Simón Planas municipality, and he is also the main spokesperson from El Maizal commune. El Maizal commune is an emblematic commune in Venezuela. It was basically baptized by Hugo Chavez, and it is a staple of popular power in Venezuela. So, and Angel Prado is one of the most respected figures in Venezuela's popular movements. So Prado has already been naming people from the communal union to be part of his team. He has begun attending popular assemblies. He has begun popular assemblies across the country. He has begun even giving President Maduro some really good constructive criticism about how government officials should listen more to the people, should be more in contact with the people. So I think one really important aspect of this election and a possible Maduro victory will be to see people like Angel Prado and the communal union make headway inside the Venezuelan state. I think that's going to be really interesting, make them seeing how they secure more positions of power that defy the status quo, but remaining an independent movement. So yes, I would like to show you, just to finish this up, a video about the communal union that we also produced at Venezuelanalysis that I think explains really well what this is all about.
Independence, commune, and socialism. That is the slogan of a Venezuelan initiative that aims to bring together popular power collectives. What is this organization all about? What are its goals? Here is the Communard Union in a nutshell. 1. A brief history. To understand the Communard Union, we need to go back to the commune. Hugo Chavez conceived the commune as the basic building block on the path towards socialism. Communes are to be democratic, local units of self-government that own means of production, run services, etc., and then progressively link up to form a national body to do away with the bourgeois state. After a huge popular mobilization that saw hundreds of communes spring up across the country, the devastating economic crisis, compounded by deadly U.S. sanctions, saw social organizations ebb significantly under the weight of precarious living conditions, migration, and the absence of state support. But in late 2019, several communes around the country began to regroup, braving the lockdown and fuel shortages to hold meetings, setting up work brigades in remote areas, and giving shape to a new organization, the Communard Union. It brings together more than 50 communes from 15 states and held its founding congress on March 4th of 2022. It aims to build a national confederation of popular power organizations, just as Chavez envisioned, but there are plenty of challenges ahead. 2. Economic muscle. One of the main priorities identified by the Venezuelan communards is the need to strengthen economic capabilities. Communes have reinforced their legitimacy in recent years by addressing people's basic needs, from affordable food to caring for the ill to efficiently distributing cooking gas or collecting waste. People will have very little energy left to push grassroots democracy if they struggle mightily to sustain themselves and their families. Still, it's not just about boosting living conditions. Chavez warned time and again that socialist islands would get swallowed by the capitalist sea. As such, the Communard Union is working to build economic links between different communes, creating productive chains outside the capitalist market channels. The idea is to generate income that will then fuel more productive initiatives and steadily increase the role played by grassroots collectives and social property in Venezuela. It is also a calling card to incorporate more and more communes. Plus, having its own resources means the organization can set its own agenda, which takes us to our next point. 3. Political autonomy. Venezuela's communes developed quickly in the early years, thanks to state resources. But this left them subject to the interests of the state body that provided the funds, be it a local government or a given ministry. He who pays the piper calls the tune. In more fundamental terms, there is a clash between grassroots democracy and the top-down nature of the bourgeois state, even if the government does want to boost popular power. Some of the main obstacles are that governors and mayors will instinctively resist transferring competencies to communes, lest they themselves become expendable, while other officials likewise want to impose their own loyal structures vertically. There is also a tendency to present communes as just another sector, alongside women, workers, campesinos, and what have you. The Communard Union, which is 100% Chavista and works closely with state institutions, explains very clearly in its political program that autonomy is an absolute must. It has its own statutes and structures, with spokespeople elected at various levels, accountability procedures, congresses, the whole 9 yards. Navigating this tension that ranges from cooperation to conflict is a permanent challenge. 4. The Socialist Horizon. Despite economic troubles, U.S. aggression, and political turmoil, Venezuela's Bolivarian grassroots remain as committed as ever to building socialism. The search for responses to deadly sanctions has seen a strong emergence of liberal, pragmatic currents that favor pro-market reforms and boosting conditions for private capital, both national and foreign. In contrast, the Communard Union doubles down on the key pillars of the socialist project, such as social property and democratic self-management. These are key ingredients that Chavez stressed time and again. As a result, the organization places a huge emphasis on communication and education. Against a backdrop where the default way of thinking is capitalist, communal activists will get the crucial technological and ideological education that's needed to build something new and different. The road ahead is full of dangers, and there is a nefarious empire hell-bent on destroying the Venezuelan experiment. Will socialism be relegated to the back burner? Will market pragmatism win the day? The Communard Union, along with other grassroots processes, will not shy away from battle. Rain or shine, communards know what they are fighting for: independence, commune, and socialism.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Andreína. That was a great presentation. Next we've got Carlos Ron, who will speak from his perspective and experience, and especially like the foreign affairs component of these upcoming elections. We're running a little bit behind, but that's okay. Are both my speakers doing okay in terms of time? Okay, perfect. And if you, the audience, if you have questions already in mind, you can put those in the Q&A for when we get to that section, if you would like. But please, thank you very much, Carlos.
So hi, everybody, and well, it's a pleasure. Thank you for this opportunity. I think Andreína's presentation was fantastic, and there's very little to add. I just want to really reinstate that a lot of the things you said are very crucial for understanding this process, and for you to get the same feeling or expectation that we have here. I mean, I think one of the important things is that, well, like Andreína said, you know, this is part of a 25-year history, a 25-year process where we've had enormous social gains, where we've had enormous advantages. We eradicated literacy. We, you know, for the first time, Venezuela was able to change the equation of inequality previous to the revolution. And once we were making strong achievements, and President Chavez passes away, then we see this very strong attack on Venezuela, this very strong onset of unilateral coercive measures, of all types of aggressions. And I think that that's particularly what I would like to focus on at this time, because these are not normal elections. These are not elections that take place in other countries where you have two different ideologies or two different programs, and you sort of measure them out against each other. Venezuela is still, I would say, we're still part of an ongoing coup d'etat against the government that was popularly elected. And specifically, we can say that it's a coup d'etat against the government elected in 2018. I say 2018 because since then, the United States did not recognize the election. It's tried to delegitimize President Maduro, but also there's been a whole set of other measures that have taken place to intervene into Venezuela's internal affairs. The recognition in 2019 of another government, of a parallel government in the person of Juan Guaidó. This actually remains until today, because if you look just a couple of days ago, there's a statement from the State Department saying that the United States recognizes the extension of the validity of Venezuelan passports for 10 more years since the 2015 National Assembly approved that extension or that validity. That means that technically, what the United States recognizes today as the legitimate authority of Venezuela is still the National Assembly of 2015, an assembly that's already ran its course, that was replaced in another election in 2020, and that doesn't exist. I mean, it only exists for the United States. And why does the United States still recognize that assembly? Because legally, by doing so, it can still have control over Citgo. It can still have control over Venezuela's frozen accounts outside of the country, and it can still, drive these measures, these sanctions against Venezuela, and justify them. I mean, sorry, just this year, they're talking about in the national budget about spending $50 million in order to restore democracy. See, this narrative that Venezuela is not a democracy, that there's something that they have to help restore, means that they are not, recognizing the people's will, the Venezuelan people's will. And this is illegal. And this is illegal because if in international law, there's nothing that says that you can actually promote, justify, support an opposition within another state. On the contrary, there's a 1986 decision in the International Court of Justice when Nicaragua took the US to trial, where it actually says that no country has a right to intervene in support of the opposition of another country, meaning doing it is actually in violation of international law. And I bring this up because, see, what Andreína was describing before, you have 25 years of success, of a transformation, especially of the combination of two key elements that I think make Venezuela very distinct from the rest of the region. You have the combination of a government with a political will to transform society, and you have an organized people being part of that transformation, being the actual protagonist of that transformation. During what Andreína was talking about, during this year, we went to several assemblies to discuss the 7 transformations that President Maduro brought out. And from these assemblies, we made the the program, the actual platform that President Maduro is running on. So you have people that identify with the platform because they were part of the process of creating that platform. When you look at the other side, as Andreína described, there is 9 other candidates on the opposition, and there are different types of opposition, and they have very specific reasons why they're not united in one same front. So when you see the tendency, it would be normal for us to think, I mean, it's very plausible to think that the revolution would repeat, a victory, because people want to vote for the continuity of these transformations, and the opposition doesn't have a project that is clear enough, united enough, so that it would compete against that. So to me and to many Venezuelans, the issue here is not really, about winning. I'm not trying to be overconfident. Of course, we have to go vote, we have to campaign, we have to do all these things. But I think it's very normal, it's very likely that we will win. The problem is that we know that inside of Venezuela, but everybody outside, because of the media narrative, because of the US aggression, thinks that it's almost, I mean, every media report you take out says it's inevitable. Maduro's going to lose. Mundo, who nobody knows here, nobody knew until about 2 months ago, nobody even knew who he was. Now this guy, this guy is going to win. He's going to have over 70% of the votes, and or 90% of the votes. All this is built in order to continue that process, that ongoing coup since 2018, that ongoing practice of not recognizing the will of the Venezuelan people. The importance of us talking to you today, because you are citizens of the United States, is that you have the opportunity of transmitting to people there inside of the US, people that make in decision-making processes, that there's a reality that they're hiding. There's a reality that the interest against the Venezuelan people, that the economic interests, that the imperialist interests are hiding. Is that, Venezuela is set out to win another election for the revolution. But these people are going to do what they do every election, what they've done for, every election since at least in 2006, and it's not recognized the result. So I could definitely see on the morning of the 28th, everybody saying, "Oh, now this is the day." You'll see in the media, the social media, the mainstream media, everybody saying, "Oh, this is the day that Venezuela is going to be transformed back to democracy." They're going to continue this narrative. Then in the middle, between sometime in the middle of the afternoon, when time approaches that, to the closing, then they're going to start saying, "Oh, now we have to close, we won, this is a victory." They're going to start promoting this idea. It's the same thing they've done in other elections in the past. And then when the closing time gets near, they're going to say, "Oh, why aren't they closing? Why are they still waiting for people to vote? They must be doing something. They must be rigging the elections." This is what they've done all the time. So it's really important that our friends, the people that are here, that's why we want a lot of people to come to the election. That's why we have different types of persons accompanying the election process, because it's important for the world to come out and say, we know the Venezuelan process is legit. We know the Venezuelan process is almost full. You can't rig it. We have one of the most modern and complex systems, electoral systems, where that it will be almost unimaginable for anybody to try to rig the process. And even then, and even though a lot of people have recognized this, I mean, you see the reports from other people that have come to previous elections, including the Carter Center. People they would say things like, "Oh, well, the machines work fine, but we think that Maduro should talk differently or should do this and that." They really have no claims against the system. against the voting process. Their claims is political, and they take political sides. But there's really, no way that the system could be rigged. But they're still going to insist on that because they have to delegitimize the process, because their strategy since the beginning has been insurrectional. The extreme right, the fascist expressions in Venezuela, they didn't want to go to a re-election because they can never sell to the Venezuelan people a platform where they promise, privatization. If you look, there's an article in the press here from a couple of days ago, which is funny because it says, you try looking for Maria Corina's plan, and all you find is this document in English. It's not even in Spanish. It's a document in English, and it starts with a phrase from Christopher Columbus, land of grace. That's what Christopher Columbus named Venezuela. I mean, this is the imperialist mentality that these people have. And that's how it starts. And and when you read through it, what they're talking about privatization, they're talking about all these things that the Venezuelan people have rejected over and over again for 25 years, because the Venezuelan people have already understood that you need a strong public healthcare system, that you need a strong public education system, that you need, government to be responsible for social and economic rights as well. But they can't tell that to the Venezuelan people. They wouldn't win. So they start off by putting Maria Corina Machado as a candidate when they know she couldn't run in the first place. And then everything else they've done since, it's not to win an election, it's to claim fraud, it's to get the delegitimization process going again. And that's what we have to be careful about. Because last time in 2019, you had Guaidó stand up in a public square and claim he was president. And one of the big difficulties that he had was saying, that he was president because there was no election. But now, they're going to claim that there was an election, that somebody else won. They're going to do whatever they can to try to stop this revolutionary process. Because this process, for what it is, it's an alternative. It's a process that presents another, type of project, another type of society. And it's a process that within this crisis of global imperialism, it's not aligning itself with the United States. It's aligning itself with Latin America, with a multipolar world, with a balance of powers. And that's not what the United States, and that's not what imperialism wants. So what I think is important for us to keep in mind is that, we are in the middle of an ongoing coup against the people of Venezuela. It's ongoing. It's the same strategy since 2018. It's actually the same strategy since the beginning of the Bolivarian Revolution, but it got worse since 2018. And that's what we have to be careful with. That's what we have to denounce. You got to think about everything that they have done in the last 4 or 5 years against President Maduro. They've helped finance attacks, attempts against his life. There's a dead or alive poster, one of those cowboy things, you need to catch him and bring him to justice, whatever, it's a reward on his head. All these things are part of that aggression against the Venezuelan people, against the will of the Venezuelan people, against the Venezuelan government. That has not stopped. And this is, if anything, what I want to leave you guys is with this notion. You have to be aware that whatever, maybe not even the 28th is the most important day, but the hours right after the result comes out are what are going to be really important, because we have to defend the will of the Venezuelan people. And we're gonna be doing it, we're gonna be expressing it, but international solidarity has to be there with us. And international solidarity has to be there to denounce the strategy of the United States, to understand that this is not something new, that this is something that's been building itself over years, and that when we see it one more time on the 28th and on the 29th, there should be no surprises. This is the strategy of imperialism against Venezuela, not recognizing the will of its people, not recognizing its legitimate constitutional institutions. And this is what we have to be aware of, and this is what we have to, I think that we have to answer and reply. So, if you have any further questions, I think, everything I think was fantastically covered by Andreína. But let me tell you, we are, like Andreína said, we are in peace. There is no violence, and that's very important. People the majority of Venezuelan people, regardless of their political positions, don't want violence. And we are going to struggle, this coming election to maintain this peace and to, to be able to continue, because what we wanted to do is to grow, to strengthen our country. I usually say this, and I know you guys know it, but it's always good to repeat it. When Venezuela took the decision of transforming itself into a revolutionary process, it doesn't do that against anyone. It's not doing it against the United States. It's not doing it against any other country in the world. It's doing it for itself. It's doing it for its people. It's doing it for, the well-being of its people. And that needs to be respected. We don't even ask for you to take sides, to pick, to choose, because it's really a decision of the Venezuelan people. But we ask that our decision is respected. And it's been very difficult to continue a revolutionary government, to carry out these policies under constant attack, under constant intervention, under constant threats. And that's what we want to end. We want to show with a strong force, with strong voting, that the Venezuelan people are willing to continue the revolution, and that we have to be respected for. So thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Carlos. So now we'll take a few questions. We've already had some people submit some questions. And if you have any other questions you would like to ask, feel free to put them into the Q&A. It looks like Andreína already responded via text to Eric Gold's question about the corporate media. Do you want to talk about that, Andreína, or are you satisfied with the answer you typed out?
Yes, I was typing the answer just to pick things up, but yeah, basically, I think everyone that you ask in Venezuela, any journalist or even anyone who is a popular communicator in Venezuela is going to tell you that it's absolutely exhausting having to bring down all these lies in corporate media about Venezuela. But eventually, it sort of becomes like a discipline. You become someone who is constantly thinking about more creative ways of bringing down these narratives. And more importantly, I think the best that we can do, it is uplifting Venezuelan voices. It is going to these popular power organizations. It is interviewing people. It is talking to people who are actually building socialism on their territories. And this is the best way to stay motivated and to realize that we have something really important to defend and to fight for. So yeah, I think that's basically the answer that I just wrote.
Perfect, thank you. David M also has a question, which is, can emigre citizens still vote? Do they need to go physically to a consulate? Do either one of y'all would like to answer that question?
I don't know if Lon wants to answer this or not, but I cannot, yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry, I miss now on the audio a little bit, but I think the question was if people can vote in a consulate. There is voting. Venezuelans can vote outside of Venezuela. I mean, there are you have to register, of course, previously. I think that we don't have more than we're somewhere around 300,000 to 400,000 people around the world only that that are actually registered to vote outside. So it's not a big it's not a large number in comparison with the 21 million or the remaining of the 21 million that are here. But yes, now for you to vote outside, you need to have a couple of things. You have to have your Venezuelan ID card, which is necessary, and you have to also have proof of permanent some sort of permanent residency outside, so that you're able to exercise the vote that's been electoral law for several years now.
Wonderful, thank you. So Brian H. asked, are the goals of the communal movement at all in contradiction or conflict with the Venezuelan Constitution?
So very briefly, no, there's no contradiction, there's no conflict there. The Venezuelan Constitution promotes popular power, and we also have like several laws that promote. We have a popular power law, we have a communes law, we have a communal councils law. So we have an entire legal system that actually works in favor of popular power in Venezuela being able to flourish, to continue to grow. So no, there's no contradiction at all.
Wonderful. Thank you. I've got a quick question. I was curious if either one of y'all would elaborate more on Angel Prado and and what he and empowering the communes may look like in a third Maduro mandate. Maybe I'll pose that to Carlos.
I think, well, you like Andreína said before, I think it's Angel is, of course, a comrade that has been part of a very important process in El Maizal. It's one of the leading examples of a commune in Venezuela. And I think his having been chosen as Minister for the Communes is a vote of confidence, so to speak, of the government into that process. And for that example to, so sort of help pick up the younger processes of communes that are there. Communes are very different. There's not one model, one map of how to build a commune. You have very different realities throughout the country, and then I mean the maybe the one common denominator in communes is first that it's an actual territorial space, and second that you have an exercise of direct democracy in those spaces. Other than that, a lot of things are going to vary due to the if they're rural, they're urban, what their productivity is, what the size is. So I think that it's very important for the role that Angel can play in helping shape or sharing at least the experience of El Maizal, which is an important experience for the younger communities. And I think it shows the commitment of President Maduro to continue on this process of deepening the building of popular power. So I think at this stage, in a third term, like you said, we're going to see deepening of this construction of popular power, of these territorial organizations, and of other things as well. I think this is a revolutionary process has a lot of elements, and especially a lot of elements on with regards to organization. We have other, there's a lot of communal councils that still haven't come together to form communes, but that they have very important experiences, and they organize, and they still do a lot of important transformations. I think that this new once we get through this victory, there's definitely going to be a new effort to deepen this process, and to shape it in a way that it can help Venezuela continue to further its development and to find alternatives. Because obviously, I don't think, because of all the reasons that I stated before, I don't think we're going to see the end of the U.S. sanctions or a change in U.S. policy anytime soon. I mean, look at Cuba, decades of blockade. Nothing is gonna make us think that it's gonna be different from us. So that's why we have to deepen the processes that free us from those entanglements, that create new alternatives. And obviously the communes is part of that path towards something more sovereign for the Venezuelan people.
Thank you. Abel has a question that I'll pose to Andreína. Has the media coverage in the rest of the Western media been any different from the media we get here in the U.S.? Does it have any different color or motivations?
So I don't think so. I mean, I don't think the media coverage about Venezuela specifically in Western media, whether it is in the US, in Europe, in here and the rest of the world, I don't think it's any different. I think one thing that corporate media has in its favor is that it's work like a machine. Like they have this distinctive narrative that they operate every single day, and they repeat them, and so they work like a single machine. And I don't think there's any difference, to be honest with you.
Yes, thank you. And then we have one question that's a little off topic about, so one of the guests is visiting Venezuela next month, and they want to know if they need a COVID vaccine certificate to enter the territory. When I went to Venezuela, I needed like a test that was valid within 48 hours. So I assume so. And then David has a question, I think was answered in the chat. He's asking about if it's a plurality versus runoff. It's not a runoff. It's a
No,
right.
it is. Yeah, it is won by a simple majority. Whoever has the most votes is the winning candidate. There's no runoff.
And Carlos confirms that it's not being checked any longer, so you should be fine. And maybe to wrap things up, I have one final question, and I'm curious both of y'all's takes on this. So the opposition for the previous election boycotted it. Do you think that just the simple fact that the opposition is participating in this election, that's a positive sign that like a contrary to like like basically an admission that the system is legitimate? What are y'all's thoughts? Maybe we'll go with Carlos first and then Andreína.
I think that the fact, I mean, it's a victory for us, I think for Venezuela in general, that they've come to participate, because we are redirecting the country back into democracy in the sense of having them play by the rules and not being violent and not being trying to push them back into the Constitution, into what the law should be. However, we shouldn't, we can expect anything. I mean, there's I wouldn't be surprised if there's going to be some attempt at violence or creating some sort of at the end of the day, there's money involved. They're getting money from outside. They've been planning this for it's been part of the Venezuelan history. So and these people are not. This is what it's important for you to understand. These people are not Democrats. They're not convinced people. These are not people that are convinced that democracy should be acceptable. Because the problem is democracy in Venezuela means that everybody has a vote. That it's not that they decide. That they as the ruling elite make decisions. Is that everybody has a say. So and that's not the democracy they like. They like a distant representative democracy where they could continue to be the elite and choose things. Or even better, they want the United States to put them in power, and they have nothing to, and they don't have to even work for it. So these are not people that are convinced about being Democrats, but it's good that they know that at least they had to attempt to come into the side of the Constitution and the electoral rules, because there's no support for any other type of insurrection.
Thank you, Carlos. Andreína, I'd love your take, but first you must introduce us to your cat. We just saw it jumping on in the background.
They were very quiet for a long time, and suddenly they woke up. So yeah, but I think the fact that the opposition, the US-backed opposition, because we have to remember that Venezuela has many opposition sectors and many opposition political parties. But the fact that the US-backed opposition is participating in this election, it just, I think it is, whether they admit it or not, it is a de facto recognition of the Venezuelan government. It is a de facto recognition of Venezuelan institutions, of the Venezuelan electoral system. And I think they're running because, I mean, they have tried every single strategy under the sun to achieve power in Venezuela, from promoting US sanctions to inciting street violence to trying to create the conditions for a foreign military intervention. And so they have really tried everything. And at this point, I think even their own supporters are tired of this narrative that there is no other path besides attempting some coup or attempting some violence. So they want to see the opposition, the US-backed opposition, actually trying the democratic path, at least for once. So I think that is the reason why they are running, because basically they don't have any other options, and the supporters are demanding that they do something more than just calling for violence. And yeah, but like I said, I think the most important part about all of this is that it is a de facto recognition that the Venezuelan institutions work, that the Venezuelan electoral system works, and that the Venezuelan government is a legitimate government.
Thank you both very much. This has been a wonderful conversation. And thank you, everybody, especially on the East Coast, for sticking through into the night for this wonderful conversation. Thank you very much, Carlos Ron, Andreína Chávez. And I hope you all have a wonderful night. And I hope you all are good and energized and ready to get involved with Venezuelan solidarity work, with IC work in general, and are ready to watch closely this upcoming election on the 28th. With that, thank you all very much for attending.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Take care.